Happy Friday, everyone. I'm coming at you here on a Wednesday as I am leaving tomorrow on Thursday for Texas. I'm getting to go home for just a little bit amount of time as I am officiating a dear friend's wedding. She and I have grown up together since we were in elementary school, and we continued to grow close up through high school. And whenever we went off to college, we would still get together for coffee or a meal over all of our breaks. And still, as I would return home from seminary and more, I would always reach out to her to get together with her so that we could talk about life, about relationships, and always about faith in some way, shape, or form. It's something that's really connected us in our friendship over all of these years. However, she does come from a very different denominational background than I do. So, as I sat down to start working on the wedding sermon, meditation is what I usually call it, and I looked at the passage in which she and her husband wanted me to preach on, I saw that it was a passage that is probably full of some of the trickiest and hardest theological materials that one could ask for at a wedding. So I found myself in a complete struggle regarding what to do and wrestling. That's what it was. I found myself wrestling pretty significantly between, well, I know what her background is and what she believes faith-wise, and I know how she would like me to preach this passage. But if I do that, am I being true to my own calling and my own beliefs and my own conceptions of what is truth? But at the same time, this is not a time for me to get on my own soapbox to preach whatever sermon that I want to preach to get my own message across. Nope. I am having to find this thin middle line in which to discern and figure out how in the world do I preach such a difficult passage to a group of virtual strangers in a way that will both be honoring the calling to which I have been called and at the same time honoring the request that this couple has made of me to officiate their wedding. So I did what any wrestling and struggling pastor would do. I called my mother. My mom is my spiritual warrior in my life. She's always encouraged me, prayed for me, and in many ways, I owe so much of what my spiritual life looks like to her and the model and example that she set for me growing up. So I call her up to start talking with her. And we both spent time poring over this passage. She's looking in her Bible and articles that she's able to find. I'm poring over the Greek and the Hebrew of different texts. And finally, my mom just says, you know what, Rachel? I think you just need to focus on this other passage they asked you to mention, 1 Corinthians 13. I know it's a standard passage, and you maybe feel like you've preached this a whole lot of times. But Rachel, this is the passage that is going to bring everyone together. This is the passage in which all of us can agree on. And I appreciated her words in that moment because I think, at least from my perspective today, we spend a lot of time focusing on the ways in which we disagree with each other. There are so many ways in which we have fights and arguments going on in this world over social media, with family members, and probably even strangers sometimes. But my mom reminded me that perhaps one of the hardest things to do, and yet what we are called to do, is not to focus on those nitpicky things that continues to drive wedges between us and draw lines of division, but instead to really do the hard work and to contemplate what are those things that really tie us together? What are the most important things that remind us of our need for others that all of us can agree on together? I never would have thought that it was so hard to look at the big picture instead of the details. And this is coming from a very detail-oriented person. I like the details. I like seeing that and getting to be nitpicky. But I think that God calls us to step back, to stop considering the ways in which we are divided, to stop pointing fingers and blaming, but instead to truly dedicate our time and energies toward what it is that all of us can come to agreement on, to what it is that brings all of us to the table. I hope you have a great day.